Anita Guerra, and I'm living the low life.
Today on Livin' the Low Life, it's the Chevy.
You couldn't walk up to the homeboys or walk up anybody's yard I grew up at driving something else but a Chevy.
There's rivalry.
So Fords were more about the engine performance.
Right, and we're, stylish and slow and low riding.
There are accessories.
They gave kids little toys. This says little Chevrolet on here. They took care of the wife and gave her a little thimble for her finger.
And new Chevys at an all-out car party.
I walked by and they were like, "Who are you?" Whatever, move on. Can we get a picture of this hot chick?
And hot Chevys.
I don't think Chevrolet had any ideas that it was going to happen like this.
Why do lowriders almost always choose Chevy over Ford? In today's episode of Living the Low Life, we're going to try to answer that question for you.
I grew up all around Chevys. My father, uncles.
Just grew up generation after generation. It's stuck in the blood.
It's more of a tradition, more lowrider style.
You can call it a Latin thing. You can call it a family tradition that's turned down. Pops drove one, and Grandpa drove one.
Some Fords look all right, but I would walk right past one. I wouldn't really give it a second look. Why? I don't know. It's just not my preference.
Growing up where I grew up, if you drove anything else but a Chevy, you'd be laughed at.
Oh, wow.
Chevrolet and lowriders share a long history, just like hot rodders and Fords. It started in the 1930s. Back then, in Mexican-American barrios across the Southwest, cruisers began customizing family-sized cars, dropping them to ride mere inches from the pavement. Modifying a car, typically a Chevy, was part of the zoot suit look, and Hispanic zooters call themselves pachucos.
This was a fad that was worn during World War II. And the Hispanics were called pachucos, and the girls were pachucas. And this was a way of dressing to look sharp and go dancing.
They wanted to look different and sharp, and they also wanted to cruise low and slow in unique cars.
I think our fathers, started that. That's what they had. It wasn't Japanese cars here. I mean, that's what was available back in the time. And just the style of it. Especially Chevy.
So it's always been Chevy, from my father down to me, and my father's just taught me nothing but Chevy. Growing up in East LA, and it's nothing but Chevys. So doing the same thing with my son, nothing but Chevy. Trucks, anything we get is Chevy.
At the same time lowriding was started, men across Southern California were modifying Model T Fords, dropping the front ends into what became known as the California rake. You could fit bigger motors under the hood. It was all meant for speed, but some pachucos took notice.
When it came to performance, speed, Ford had it. They had the V8 before Chevrolet. Chevrolet didn't have the V8 till 55.
The low customs and, got the girls. And there was hot rodders, and then there were the low customs. Well, the customs evolved, and in about 1961, 62, guys started raising their cars up, 55 Chevys with no front bumpers and things like that, to have a drag look.
Pachucos wanted elements of the hot rod look, but they wanted their own twist to match their zoot suit style. Besides, they weren't about going fast. No need to modify the straight-six motors in their Chevys. Instead, they made changes to the paint and interiors.
A custom car is all customized. A lowrider is normally all stock with a panel paint job. I mean, it's not normally chopped. It was a cheaper and easier fix to lower it and paint it.
For a while, World War II put the brakes on both the emerging hot rod and low-riding scenes. But after the war, car customizing exploded.
I mean, you bought a Chevrolet for 15, 30, 50 bucks, if you can imagine that. And they got them, and they shaved the handles, and they lowered them, and put skirts on them, and accessories, and they had their own little cult, so to speak. And then your 50s came along, and you had the hot rodders versus the lowrider lead sled guys in the 40s. They wanted to go fast, Bonneville. We wanted style.
And Chevrolet was at the forefront of this movement.
I don't think Chevrolet had any ideas that it was going to happen like this, you know what I mean?
trivia for you. The last Woody wagon was built with real wood sides in 1949. From mid-1949 to 1954, GM used fake wood made out of tin. They're called Tin Woodies.
In the 1940s, money was scarce in the Latino community. They fixed up their Chevys as best they could. Then in the 50s, everything changed. The U.S. auto industry was booming. The plants paid well and taught customizers the finer points of engineering. With new skills, lowriders took their hobby to the next level. Chevys were most popular. They still are today.
Why Chevy and not Ford? It depends on the eras. 30s, 40s, and 50s cars, I would say, because they make that rowdy, raspy noise coming down the road with those pipes, and that's tradition.
Today, some drivers thrive on tradition.
This car club calls itself Down South, and if you want to be down with these guys, you must have a Chevy. So Fords were more about the engine performance, and then Chevy was more about the style and the look of the car, right?
Right, more high performance drag racing, and we're stylish and slow and low riding. That's why we choose Chevy. The majority of the Hispanics.
This style and look is in demand.
I do weddings, quinceañeras. I did a lady's 50th birthday party, took her cruising in it, and I dress like this. I'm the chauffeur. It's part of our heritage, so I love it.
As always, classic cars bring classic stories.
So I heard there's a story about 34 that you know about.
Well, as far as the Ford, like Bonnie and Clyde, they were killed in a 1934 Ford, and Clyde wrote a letter to Henry Ford thanking him for producing the V8, which was enabled him to avoid the police.
Wow.
True story.
Yeah, the Fords were out there. They had the V8s, but when you had the Chevy and you had it down on the ground, and whether it was a custom or whether it was a lowrider of the time, which at that time they lowered them with cement bags and bricks in the trunk and what have you. It was a different time.
It was when the term lowrider didn't exist. Lowered cruisers were lumped in with racers. Today, these cars known as bombs are popular. Some car clubs only allow them to join. Others, like Down South, have classics next to their newer Chevys. Again, old cars bring stories, like this 36 Master Deluxe.
I bought it in Illinois, right outside of Chicago. The original owner was called the Hangman. Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they used to have public executions. The guy bought it after he retired, but it was his car, but he bought it in 1936 brand new. He kept his car in his family till I bought it 5 years ago. It had 45,000 original miles.
This treasure was found in tip-top condition on eBay.
It was a 7-day auction, and you had a chance to buy it now for $13,000. And it just took me like 5 seconds.
Yes, bombs are popular, but the most sought-after Chevy is the Impala.
First year of the Impala is 1958, and the desirable ones technically now, anything 1958 all the way up to 67.
It's all about the love of the classic American car, and that classic-loving rock legend Billy Gibbons has summed it all up for us.
There's a history of the automobile within the American pop culture that has been there since the beginning. Still going on.
Owning a classic Chevy opens up a world of collecting.
It's time to get schooled by a true Chevy historian, the one and only Mike Ramos.
Mike's a Chevy expert who not only has a fleet of great Chevys, he also has a vast array of vintage collectibles.
Chevrolet invested millions of dollars to get you to go in and purchase the car. They trained their salesmen to sell these cars.
And here's part of that training.
This one is a 1948 salesman's kit. If there was 100 dealers, there was 100 of these boxes. You had a projector and a stereo. There it says, produced by Jim Handy. This phonograph played with a film strip. There's a film strip in this particular Handy the Appraisal. So these are little tins that went on the reel. There's the whole story with the salesman, and he showed you how to sell the car. So this is one of my little treasures. As you can see, it's a little dusty. Don't know too many of these around.
Mike also has Chevy gear you might not believe.
Chevrolet made a big deal when they were introducing the new model. They had parties, they had cake, they had promotional items that you see here. There's the paper plate, there's the napkin. In this particular case, this is a 54 napkin, there's a 54 cup. The spoon even has a Chevrolet logo embossed in it. They gave kids little toys. This says little Chevrolet on here. This particular toy is a 1961. And it's a little ball with a little cup for the kids to keep the kids busy as mom and pop look for the new car. They took care of the wife and gave her a little thimble for her finger. You got a scraper to wipe the ice off if you live back east. 1959, this is dubbed. Found this in the stash. This is the back of a box of a Kellogg's Corn Flakes. It's a fleet line for the kids. You fold it in and make a little toy out of it. There's Lifesavers candy. This particular one is 1982. You don't want to eat it. The salesman had incentives. We have some rare cufflinks here. 1959 taillights, 1960, 1961, 1963, 66 Caprice, and the salesman would wear them. This item here is a Viewmaster of its day. It's called a multi-view. You worked it, you put the slide in here, you showed your potential customer in 1957 what the 58 was going to look like. You put your eyeballs in here, you hit the button, presto, you got to see what the car looked like before anyone else.
And new parts have always come with owning a car.
The reproduction market for Chevrolets is huge. If you can imagine, Chevrolet set of fender skirts for a 57, $11.25 is what it cost back then. Chevy even got into the program with the vets when they got out of the war and catered to them. Here's a demonstrator kit for the salesman to show the GI that he too can have a Chevrolet. There's the guy, he had his arm blown off, poor guy, and he can drive a Chevrolet with his hook.
Price was part of loving a Chevy.
In the 30s, Chevrolet was one of the cheaper cars you can buy. In today's era, they're one of the most expensive because the Lowriders changed that and put all the accessories and made them elegant. You look at a 39 Chevy versus a 39 Ford and you can't compare the two. As America grew out of the 40s war period, 50s period, family was the thing. You bought a Chevy every 2 years, it seemed like. You had a job, you traveled, you went on vacation, you took the family along, you bought a station wagon. If you're lucky enough, you had the 9-passenger seat and you were faced backwards looking at the people with the electric window that rolled down. Great memories. So Chevrolet was catering to everybody. Family, the sports cars, the hardtops, the super sports.
Here's a trivia question. In 1956, where did Chevy hide the gas store on the Bel Air? Behind the left tail light.
Trivia questions are great, but let's get to the big question.
So the big question of the day is, why a Chevy and why not a Ford?
Just the body lines on the Chevys. They got nicer curves, just like a woman. We love them. We love Chevys just like a woman.
Is it like Hispanic tradition to have a Chevy?
Oh, yes, it is.
So if you're in anything other than a Chevy, then you're a joke?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you couldn't walk up to the homeboys or walk up anybody's yard I grew up at driving something else but a Chevy.
They'll tease you?
Oh, yes. And that's since I was young, really young. Yeah. It was like you couldn't walk up without a Corona or a Budweiser. You know, they'd laugh you out of that also.
Some of these classic Chevys have model names that are just as rare as the cars. They also went for prices from a whole other era.
My car is a 1933 Chevy Eagle model. It's a Depression car. Back then, it sold for $565.
They're rolling history books.
FDR became president in 1933. The first drive-in was built back in New Jersey in 1933.
And the economy dictated the build.
Due to the Depression, the inner body is made out of wood because of the metal, you know, depression.
By the way, many women prefer Chevys as well.
Why do you think lowriders choose a Chevy?
Because it's fun. Look at this car. It's nice to ride in it, it's style, and you look good when you're in a car like this.
So if I was a car, I would be a Chevy?
All day.
When GM throws a party, you'll see some very special cars and some friends you might recognize.
The GM All-Car Showdown. It's the annual GM Blowout with Shaq and his friends, all in love with their Chevys.
Great GM event, giving some money to charity and getting a chance to hang out with some fellas.
And Vita Guerra.
I walked by and they were like, who are you? Whatever, move on. Hey, the janitor's in the way. Can we get a picture of this hot chick?
I'm a Corvette enthusiast. I'm not that fun and play with my car. You know, show what I've done to it.
We grew up with Chevys. We live it, we love it. You know, we gotta have it. We lose sleep over it. We pay the chrome bill before the phone bill. We got our priorities straight, you know?
I came to see the GM cars and Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, look out because Shaq is on the way. And as you can see, he won't be the only famous face in the house, with celebrity judges Michael Irvin, Frankie Munoz, and Michael Clark Duncan here to crown one Chevy owner the king of bling. And here he is, arriving in style, the man, the legend, and the Chevy lover.
You ready to start the show? Give it up and make some noise right now for Michelle Rodriguez in a hot little red truck. Corey, you looking sweet, baby. Okay. 60 and Colorado. Wow. Oh my goodness. Y'all like this right here? How y'all feeling it? Jeremy, how you doing, man? You look yeah, my man gets down. Y'all like the car show floor? What's going on? Make some noise for my man Orlando Jones in the 61 Bel Air with the
Baby seats in the back.
Ready for action.
That's old school right there.
We got Pampers and Similac in the trunk, baby seats in the back. All you baby mamas are welcome. I'm right here. Holla.
You know, cars is definitely an accessory, definitely an extension of yourself. You can tell a lot about a person by the car they drive.
Car after car and star after star, this party is off the hook.
I want to see who's hot and who's not, right, Shaq?
Yep, that's all we doing.
Shannon Moakler's 53 was named Best Classic, and Macy Gray's Hummer got Best Exterior. But first place went to this Escalade owned by basketball superstar Corey Maggette.
How y'all like this, y'all? How y'all like this right here?
Okay, Louis.
Corey Chevy truly is one wild winner.
Is that okay? All glass seats? Damn.
22 monitors total, original Louis Vuitton, chromed out engine, 27-inch rims, like Sonny Johnson's, and nobody else helped him do anything on this car but him. He's the only person that touched this car, nobody else.
Corey Maggette's car, it was just unbelievable. I don't know how you can explain it, but that car, that truck is blinged up.
Number one.
From the party to the street, for some, it can only be a Chevy.
There's something about Chevrolet, it's timeless. You look at these cars and they still hold up. They still have style. Something of today that you don't see anymore. It's plastic. You can't distinguish between a Mazda and a Ford Taurus. You can't go wrong with a Chevy.
Well, there you have it. Lowriding and Chevy's always gone together, and it looks like they'll never change. True lowriders will always keep it low and slow, dressing up their cars with a little bow tie on the hood. It's all about keeping the tradition alive. See you on the boulevard, living a low life. He said he could do the same thing. You gotta do the split too.